Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Van Life with Steve, where today we're going to visit Lassen Volcanic National Park, which is located in northeastern California, just southeast of Redding, California. As we head into the park, I want to please ask you for a small favor. If this is your first time visiting the channel, if you could please give me a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. And if you're a current subscriber, which I appreciate you so much, if you could please double check and make sure the bell is on for notifications, that would be a really big help. Thanks so much, and let's head into the park. We're going to get started right away with the park's signature hike, the Bumpass Hell Trail. Lassen Volcanic National Park was established in 1916 from the formation of two national monuments and sees about 400 to 450,000 visitors annually. It has two sections. You have the Lassen Peak section, which was formerly Lassen Peak National Monument, and you also have the Cinder Cone section, which was previously Cinder Cone National Monument. Now, I checked the top YouTube videos for Lassen, and none of them actually show you the Cinder Cone section of the park, which in addition to Cinder Cone also has what's known as the Painted Dunes. So please stick around until the end of the video if you're curious about that section of the park. Now, getting back to those national monuments, which were established in 1907 by President Teddy Roosevelt. Following the eruption of Lassen Peak in 1915, President Woodrow Wilson then combined the national monuments to form Lassen Volcanic National Park. Now, with all that out of the way, we'll head down and get a closer look at what they call Bumpass Hell, which is a collection of fumaroles, acid pools, and mud pots. So Lassen is the only other place besides Yellowstone where you can see these geothermal features. And just like Yellowstone, all of the water here is very hot and very acidic, and it will harm and or kill you. So make sure that you abide by all the safety precautions when you're on these trails. Now let's head back up the trail and we'll take a minute here to review the history of Lassen Peak. So I'm sure you're quite familiar with the 1980 eruption of Mount St. Helens, but before Mount St. Helens, Lassen Peak in 1915 was the first and is, along with Mount St. Helens, those are the only two volcanoes to erupt in the contiguous United States in the 20th century, and Lassen was the first volcanic eruption in this country to be documented by both film and photography. I'll also include a link to a video from 1915 of that very same eruption in the video description below. What's so amazing is those rocks you see in some of these photos are still in the park on the devastated area loop trail. Briefly, just to share a little bit more about the park, Lassen is also one of the few, if not the only location in the world where you can see examples of all four different types of volcanoes, which are composite, cinder cone, plug, and shield. Here's a graphic that identifies all of the different volcanic formations and their type within the park. Now, Sulfer Works, which we'll see here in just a moment, and Bumpass Hell are actually the remains of the heart of an extinct stratovolcano that was known as Brokaw Volcano. And essentially the hot spot which created that volcano has now moved under Lassen, and then without any more volcanism to replenish the rock, Brokaw Volcano subsequently eroded over time, exposing Sulfer Works and Bumpass Hell. So when you visit those areas, you're standing in what used to be the heart of an ancient volcano. And with this quick glance of a deer crossing the road, we'll now head over to Sulfer Works and look at the mud pots there. Getting back on the main road, now let's take a look at Lake Helen with Lassen Peak in the distance. It's just a beautiful lake. Another interesting fact about Lassen Peak is it's one of, if not the largest plug dome volcano in the world, and has an elevation of 10,457 feet. Plug dome volcanoes are formed when you have magma that basically pushes rock up as the magma rises from below. And there's a very interesting looking trail there to the top, and sadly I passed on making that height, and I regret that, but I'll speak more about that trail in a little bit. As we head to our next stop, I do want to briefly mention that while Lassen doesn't quite rise to the level of, say, going to the Sun Road in Glacier National Park, the Scenic Drive here is actually quite nice, and I think you'd really enjoy it. The trail we're going to go on now is the Kings Creek Falls Trail, and this trail ended up being a little bit of a bust, as we'll see here shortly. The burned trees are from the Dixie Fire, which I believed happened in 2021. And as we've now made it to the falls, you can see here that there was some sort of construction or repair going on with the lookout, and the Park Service had put up a barrier, and you can kind of see the edge of the falls there in the background. But I felt that out of respect for the NPS and for my own safety, instead of getting a better look at the falls, it was better that I stayed back behind the barrier. So we'll just have to settle for just this sort of okay look at the waterfall. Heading back, this trail basically works like a loop, and on the way back you can only go up. You can only ascend, you can't go down. But returning on the trail, you do get a great look at what I guess you would call the Cascades of Kings Creek, and they're pretty neat to see. That's a serious hike right there, boy. Let me tell you. Whew. Continuing on the main road, I stopped for a quick look at the devastated area loop trail, but I noticed the sun was getting pretty low in the sky, and I said, uh-oh, I gotta get moving here or I'm gonna miss sunset on Lassen Peak. But I did manage to squeeze in a quick stop at Hat Mountain, reflecting in the perfectly still waters of Summit Lake. And now, I almost missed sunset, but I think I got an okay shot. I hope you'll agree. And then from there, I went to Boondock for the night. Starting with the next day, in the same location, I wanted to see how sunrise appeared on the mountain, and it's a pretty cool view. And I don't want to talk over the Cinder Cone section of the park, so we'll go ahead and we'll get to the recommendation for Lassen Volcanic National Park. On a scale of destination, include with a bigger trip, or avoid, I would say this is definitely a destination park, and I think it's kind of a hidden gem for California because I don't think this is a more well-known national park in California. It's a little far away from the major population centers, and it's kind of its own little mini Yellowstone with all of the neat geothermal features, but the crowds here outside of Bumpass Hell are basically non-existent, which makes this national park an extremely easy park to visit. Now, what's so special about this park, I would say, is the trail to the top of Lassen Peak that I regret not doing. While it is not an easy trail, it's an opportunity to climb an active volcano, and it doesn't require any technical climbing knowledge, unlike a mountain like, say, Mount Rainier or Mount Hood. To be able to climb an active volcano is something that's pretty special, and so I think this should definitely be a national park that you don't miss. We'll go over some quick tips. The best season, in my opinion, because of all the snow that's received at the park during the winter, would be in the late summer, early fall, when there's the smallest amount of snow possible. To see all of the park, it can be done in one day if you move from south to north, but I think you need to budget at least 3 days, 2 days for the Lassen section, and 1 day for Cinder Cone. I think that your best moment for sunrise is probably going to be from the top of Lassen Peak if you're that adventurous, and then sunset is definitely going to be of Lassen Peak, reflecting in Lake Manzanita. As I mentioned, none of the top videos for Lassen Volcanic took you to Cinder Cone, the other section of the park. So let's head over there now. Here's a quick ground level look at the fantastic lava beds, and then we'll pan over to Cinder Cone, which is another form of a volcano. This volcano is 700 feet tall, and it is, of course, made up of volcanic ash, which made this one of the most miserable hikes I ever went on in all of my travels. But it was so worth it. Let's head straight to the top, where you're treated to unbelievably amazing views of Lassen Peak and all of the surrounding area. It's really incredible. There's the caldera. Perhaps most impressive in all the park are the painted dunes, which are volcanic ash dunes that are remnants of the Cinder Cone eruption from 350 years ago. That snag lake there in the distance, the painted dunes were really an incredible sight to see, and I expended all of my energy to get up to Cinder Cone, so I had to go back to the van and rest for the rest of the day. But I definitely believe seeing the painted dunes was well worth the trip down the horrible dirt road you have to drive down to get to this section of the park. It almost shook my van apart getting over here. And that's going to wrap it for Lassen Volcanic National Park in California. Now it's time to head on to the next adventure. I want to thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks and take care. Bye.